Superman 2. The adventure continues with the 3 villains from Krypton. Each one with the same powers as Superman. Each one dedicated to violence against mankind.
Think of it. 3 supervillains.
Or 4 if we count him twice.
The adventure continues in Paris with Lois Lane.
I believe this is your floor.
And the romance continues. The adventure continues in Washington. The world is on the brink of destruction.
Superman, can you hear me?
And Metropolis is in ruins.
Superman, help us!
Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?
Superman!
General, would you care to step outside? Revenge.
Revenge!
Revenge!
Now we're cooking, huh?
The big one's just as strong as Superman.
If you've only seen the first part, you haven't seen the best part. The adventure continues in Superman 2.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
That was an epic trailer.
It was.
So good.
Classic superhero trailer from the 80s. I love it. Everybody out there listening, my name's Pete.
And I'm Scott, and these are the movies that made us gay.
Hey.
Episode 98.
Oh, my God.
We're almost
wow.
there.
We are turning the corner on 100 episodes, everybody. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm excited for this one.
Yes, indeed.
I know you've been excited to do this movie for a while.
Yes, this movie and I go back a long ways. I'm very excited about hitting on Superman 2 finally. So, Scott, why don't you introduce our guest and talk a little bit about our movie?
So we watched Superman 2, released June 19th, 1981, with our friend and prior guest of the show. You might remember him from his Lost Boys episode.
Yes,
our favorite straight, Billy Roach.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
And, I mean, you're one of my friends that is like the Superman expert. Of just, you know everything about Superman. So that's why I wanted to have you on this episode.
Oh, I'm honored.
Yeah. Superman as a character, as a comic book character, is very interesting. I mean, he's, kind of brought back into public favor with, the Snyder Cut being released on HBO Max.
A lot of kids of the 70s and 80s adore these movies and the Superman character.
Yeah.
I've kind of observed.
Yeah. I feel like lately, the past few years, comic book movies they've just been dominated by Marvel.
Yeah.
And, with the Zack Snyder version of Superman coming in, it's one way for kids to get introduced. But now there's a lot of other Superman material out there on television.
Oh my gosh,
talking a little bit about what's the name of the show?
Superman and Lois on the
Lois.
CW. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
If you love this version of Superman, you kind of want that wholesome corniness.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of that from Superman
That
and Lois.
Superman is very, very handsome, too.
Oh, Tyler Hoechlin?
Tyler Hoechlin.
I still don't know. The jury is still out on if that on-set paparazzi photo of this huge ass.
If that ass is padded.
the bubble butt?
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's real or not, because Snopes or debunked or whatever. I think it has been who are those guys on the Discovery Channel with the crazy mustaches that
Mythbusters.
It has been myth busted that those pictures of Tom Holland's ass are fake. So
Oh,
So I don't
didn't know that. Why did you just like crush the dream?
Yeah, those Tom Holland, very well built young man, but those particular pictures of his huge ass are not.
He's
real.
not quite packing that ass.
No.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if those pictures of Tyler Hoechlin might have been enhanced a little bit for the gays and for the fans out there. But hey, we've got in this movie we've got Christopher Reeve, one specimen
so dreamy
of a human in as Superman. Jeez Louise.
So what was both of your introductions to this movie? Because me personally, I did not grow up on the Richard Donner Superman movies.
Right.
I definitely know that they were there, and I was very familiar with him, but I just never really watched these movies growing up, partly because I just think that the Tim Burton Batman movies just sort of dominated anything superhero if you were a kid in the early 90s. So what about you two? Bill, you go first.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I remember loving those Burton films as well. I mean, you get to those kind of darker superhero films like Batman 89, even the first Ninja Turtles movie.
Oh, yeah.
For kids of that age were just, like, phenomenal. I can't remember the first time I ever saw Superman or even Superman 2, this film. You know, it probably came across when I was a kid on television, and I was just enamored immediately.
Yeah.
It's so fun, so kind of cheesy, bright. There's everything that like kids want, and a lot of things that are missing from modern superhero films.
Definitely.
And as a kid growing up with no father, my father died when I was very young. I want to say 3 months old, and I had a very supportive, loving, strong mother, and she did everything she could. But for a young boy growing up without a father, Superman kind of became a father figure for me.
I love that.
And it's just ever since then I've been drawn to the character. I love the character immensely. And it's really weird because if you look at my spectrum of interests, Superman is like the one thing that doesn't really fit. It's like vampires, goth, horror, it's like then Superman. It's my shining beacon of hope over here that I still look to this day. Like sometimes when I'm having a bad day, it's just like I kind of center and I think about Superman and I just kind of let things go.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally. That's great. That's awesome. Again, I'm a little older. I always say this every time than most of our guests and some of our listeners.
I get it. You're old.
But I think Pete and I are closer to the same age.
Actually. And so when this came out, I was a kid. I was a small kid. My dad had a Betamax player. And my uncle, my dad's brother, was a teenager when I was a little kid, like 6 or 7, around that age. He was a teenager, and we would rent movies all the time. And I specifically remember watching Superman 2 at home. I remember, the big fight scene in New York City, throwing Zod into the Coca-Cola sign, the neon Coca-Cola sign.
The Marlboro cigarettes truck.
Well, I don't specifically remember that.
The sponsors.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if that were to happen in a movie now?
A huge cigarette truck. Yeah. But I specifically remember watching these at home from a very young age. And we rented movies all the time, and, Karate Kid and all those movies that we couldn't buy movies then because they were exorbitantly expensive to buy.
$500 for
not quite. They're like
one Betamax.
They were like $90.
Sure,
right. Which in 1984 was a lot.
I like to think that they were $500.
Yeah, so we weren't buying the Goonies, but we were renting them all the time. And I know that my dad and my uncle really loved movies and going to the movies and renting them. So it was a big thing sitting down with the family and watching these. And so when my sister and I would spend our weekends or whatever with our dad, we would do that. And I specifically remember watching Superman and seeing Christopher Reeve, just thinking like, okay, I think I'm a little different.
Sure.
Because to me as a little kid, 5 or 6 year old kid, I mean, he didn't look like anybody in my family. Mm-hmm. He didn't look like any of the like adult male figures that were around me at my school or anybody in my family. So I was just like, oh my goodness, this person is like, he is from a different gene pool than than me. And being just kind of like fascinated by how he looked, his presence on screen, and then kind of like also because there was this duality to him. He had his Clark persona where he wore glasses and was a little bit more timid and just kind of like shy kind of a person. And I was like, okay, I really love that. But really, he's actually Superman. And that was like, as a little kid, that keys into a lot of shit, you know? Then with like Superman 3, my sister and I loved that movie because Richard Pryor was, even as children, 6, 7, 8 years old, we thought Richard Pryor was funny. I mean, we weren't watching Live on the Sunset Strip, so we weren't listening to him talk about like hookers and cocaine. But we saw The Toy and we saw Brewster's Millions and we saw these movies where to us Richard Pryor was very funny. So we loved Superman 3. Going back and watching it as an adult,
yeah, Superman 3 might have been my intro to Richard Pryor.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's a whole different
That
story.
movie's crazy.
Do you always tell that story of watching that movie with your sister and at the end of it?
where the woman gets sucked into the machine and gets turned into a robot.
Yeah.
What the hell?
You love that scene.
That scene is nightmare fuel.
It is absolute nightmare fuel.
These two children watching it in the 80s and just losing their mind.
We would just scream and laugh and scream and run around the living room just screaming because, like, this woman would... Why is she turning into a robot? Like, this makes no sense at all.
Oh, there's so many great things in all of these films that make no sense, but I still love them so much.
I mean, that's the thing, is that there wasn't a template for doing movies like this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think that just Warner Brothers really went out on a limb with Richard Donner in the first movie, that studios just weren't making movies like this ever.
Well, okay, so Superman... or comic book movies at the time were difficult because special effects, right? Mm-hmm. So how are they going to make this guy fly? How are they going to make him do half of the stuff that he does? And in 1979, 78, 79, when the first movie came out?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole, like, they built the marketing campaign on the fact that the special effects work.
Yeah.
The tagline was...
You'll believe a man can fly.
You'll believe a man can fly.
Yeah.
You know? So the whole thing was like, we got it. Finally, we figured it out. And... I mean, now when we watch it, it's like, oh, okay, he's in front of the screen. We get it. But I feel like movie watchers are more, I mean, I hate to say sophisticated, but in the sense that we kind of know how all that stuff works now.
Yeah, but I will say that this movie has something that I think a lot of the modern superhero films don't have when you deal with characters like Superman that fly. There's an elegance to Chris Reeve when you see him landing. Yeah. When you know it's obviously wire work. He's so light, and when he lands, it's perfection. Where you see Superman movies talking about the Snyder Cut or the Zack Snyder, even Superman and Lois, which I love. When Superman lands, he lands with like a thud. It's so fast, and you see the CG effect of like the ground breaking. And Chris Reeves had this like elegance about it.
You can tell that
it was fantastic.
It's done well in Supergirl too. We have done Supergirl on this show.
Yeah.
Oh,
a little over a year ago.
Mm-hmm. I listened and was screaming at my phone when I was listening to that episode because I love Supergirl. It's so cheesy, so campy. I love it.
And the wire work in that movie is really well done.
Very good. Yeah.
And it's a different type of wire work in that movie. They're doing more acrobatic stuff. And I watched... so we have a DVD set of Superman, Superman 2, 3, 4.
I think we picked it up at Best Buy.
And it also has Superman Returns in there. But what it is, it's a DVD combination. It's a 5-film collection, but it's weird, right? It feels like it actually is what they did is they picked the discs off of like other like multi-disc sets and threw them in there. So Superman 1 is the extended cut of Superman. The version of Superman 2 is the Donner cut. So Superman the movie, it says Disc 2 Expanded
That's
Edition.
funny. So it's quite literally picked from
And see,
a
I have
set.
this set, but in the thicker
The
box
full set,
and it has Superman the Expanded Cut, Superman 2, Superman the Donner Cut, 3, 4, and then Returns.
So all this has is the Donner cut for Superman 2. But it doesn't have any special features. It's bare bones. I think this whole thing cost us like $17. So I went to YouTube to find the special features from the set that probably you have.
Yeah, I have a bonus disc with my set. Yeah.
So Behind the Cape, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So they talk about specifically Chris Reeve in the rig because they, the screen tests of getting the flight screen tests are funny because they started off. Didn't they just start off shooting something at like a toy out of a cannon or something?
Yeah, something like that to get like trajectory or speed. It's very strange.
Yeah, they tried everything because they didn't know what to do. It was a the late 70s, and they never got anybody to fly.
I know they used a lot of the stuff that they used for Star Wars, and I think the figure was to figure out lighting. And so.
But they did a lot of stuff with stunt guys and, just the people that worked behind the scenes, putting them in these rigs, flying them and all that. They said when Chris Reeve came in, they said that he had done like paragliding or something.
Interesting. Okay.
So he knew how to keep his body straight.
Sure.
And kind of like flat.
It's a lot of upper body strength.
So he was able to actually hold himself out in this flat, like prone position in the rig. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, okay. He knows how to handle his body. So this work looks a lot better than we thought it was going to look. So that's really interesting that it kind of just like his casting just kind of worked so well in all these areas. Like it just kind of fit perfectly.
Yeah. For someone who in the first Superman film, they initially told no.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And originally he was turned down for the role because his hair was too light.
Really?
Yeah, his hair, he's like a dirty blonde, like light brunette. And there's a story about how he ran downstairs across the street to a store and he bought shoe polish, put it in his hair, and then came back. And like one of his early screen tests, you can kind of see it dripping from the hairline.
I love that.
And he did it again. And it was just
that.
the persistence. And then he initially got the job after that, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine anyone else. In this role, though.
Yeah.
Especially for that time in the late 70s. Like, who would they have?
They offered Redford.
Yeah, they offered Redford, and I think
Redford never would have done it though.
But he's a blonde.
Yeah.
How are they going to tell Reeves he's?
And I think they went out for Stallone as well.
Oh my god!
Like, I guess when you put, I guess maybe Stallone from the late 70s.
I get Stallone as like young, really like built, dark hair.
Yeah,
it's a little too on the nose.
But that would have been a wild.
That would have been crazy.
the performance, yeah, because when you get Sly, you don't just get the look, you get the voice.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen him try to do Clark Kent.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Robert Redford is really interesting choice. I mean, I get it. He's very like all American, but
huge star in the 1970s too.
Yeah, and they originally wanted to go for a name before they decided to go for kind of more of an up and comer.
Yeah, where I think the draw with the Chris Reeves film was the technology, and the name that got everybody to the theater was Brando.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
How much did they pay Brando for those scenes of Superman?
You know, and I don't even remember the dollar amount, but I know he got paid more than everyone else in that film. And he was in it for 10 minutes,
like
5 minutes.
Made like $1 million or something a minute.
And was very difficult to work with.
But let me say this, what I learned in my research, we were talking a little bit about the symbol, that it was Brando's idea that the Superman S shield is the house crest of Jor-El.
Sure.
So he's wearing it on Krypton, or Krypton, as he pronounces it.
Look,
and that's kind of been woven into like the mythology, right?
Yeah, and then that is now the current like reasoning for it. It's
Yeah.
not an S for Superman. It's the shield of the House of El.
Yeah.
Which
So-
was, when you said Krypton, you said that's the way he pronounces it. That's also the way Zod pronounces it, too.
Yes,
Which
yeah.
I thought was hilarious.
I
forgot about the Brando pronouncing it
I
that
don't
way.
know if Brando is just doing like a faux like British accent kind of a thing, because I know like he's kooky, right? We know Marlon Brando's kind of a kook. His performance in the Dr. Moreau. That performance is crazy. He's doing like a weird accent
movie and
there.
performance.
So I think he's just like, oh, okay, I'm Jor-El. I'm from this other planet. I'm making British.
I'm making distinct choices.
Yeah, and I think that's where he came up with Krypton, because Lara says it. She pronounces it that way. Yeah. And I'm sure they probably just took the lead from Brando for that.
It's like half British.
Yeah, totally.
It's very weird.
I also read that they offered the role of Superman to a couple of people before they landed on Christopher Reeve. I think Dustin Hoffman was in there.
No. Too nerdy.
Great Clark Kent.
Great Clark Kent, but I think when they gave it, or when they offered it to him, he said he'd do Lex Luthor. But then that didn't work out either.
That would have been very interesting.
Yes.
I like Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, though. I like that Gene Hackman just can't even be bothered shaving his head. Like, I'm not doing that.
No. Well, I also love that Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor just swings for the fences. It's so great. And he's just so obsessed with land.
Always a real estate scheme with that one.
Always a real estate scheme. Every film.
I like that when he asked for the continent of Australia, and I'm like, the whole continent? Are you going to make everyone move out and just live there by yourself?
Well,
are you going to be,
why would you want to just have a little city?
Are you going to be like king of Australia? Like, what is your game plan, dude?
But why Australia?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It's the biggest island in the world. I think that's I think that's his angle.
I think that's it. Because he could have been like, I will be the king of Hawaii. But it's like, that's it? That's all you got?
But then later in the film, when he gives another morsel to Zod, he asks for Cuba.
Yeah. Yeah. On the other side of the world. Yeah.
Summer home?
Totally. Or winter home because he'll be in Australia. We have to talk so much about Superman, the movie, because
it's like the first 10 minutes of this movie.
Well, also they were kind of... The intention was that they shot them initially.
Were they back to back?
Yeah, way before.
They shot them all together.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Wow.
Donner was filming 2 while he was filming 1.
Mm-hmm.
And as the story goes, he went really over budget and behind schedule because he's doing 2 movies back to back. And he was fired mid-production of 2 and replaced, right?
Yes,
by Richard Lester?
Yes.
Who had worked with the Salkinds before on 3 Musketeers, which he's known for doing back-to-back films because he did 3 and 4 Musketeers back-to-back.
Okay. And he worked on Superman the movie, right? Wasn't he there for doing in some capacity, or did he just?
I don't believe Lester was
okay.
involved at all in the first film.
Okay. So the original intention was we're shooting them both back to back at the same time. We're going to release 1, and either a year or less than a year later, we're going to release 2,
Matrix style.
Right.
Yeah, I think the original intent was 6 months later.
6 months. Yeah. And at the end of Superman the movie, it says like Superman will be back, whatever.
Mario Puzo from The Godfather wrote both scripts.
Yes.
That's crazy that this movie is written by the guy that wrote The Godfather.
I mean, he's just adapting like material at this point.
Well, he's adapting. I mean, he's pulling from comic books, but a lot of the source material that we know for Superman now, it was actually created in this movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of comics, like they reinvented Superman in the 80s by launching a new title, Man of Steel by John Byrne, and a lot of that integrated what they did in the Reeves films.
Okay.
And I would take it that a character like General Zod, while probably was in the comics, probably anything that came after this movie, you're sort of modeling it after Terence Stamp.
After this movie, 100%.
Yeah.
Before this movie, he wasn't a completely different character, but the look and a lot of the intentions were different.
I love that performance. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. And the look of the Kryptonian, like, villains, these 3.
So cool.
Mega 70s. I love it.
Yeah.
That super low V.
Yes.
With a little bit of the chest hair popping out.
That's what's interesting, because the 2 male characters have this like super sexy, like almost like a gi, like karate uniform, and it's completely open. But Ursa, the one late, like hers is
Sarah
not
Douglas.
as revealing.
She has her
chest.
She has her cutouts on her thighs.
Yeah, they make up for it by having the cutouts on the arms and the thighs.
She has her drag cutouts. Do you know what the character of Ursa reminds me of? Do you remember on All Stars 1 of Drag Race where they had to come out with drag superheroes? This is something that would have been on the main stage of that show.
Yeah, she would have been with Melanina and Firecrotch.
She has those beautiful eyebrows.
Her face is so contoured.
It's super fierce.
Yeah. And the wings.
Yeah.
Her makeup is fantastic.
She's got that liquid eyeliner with the little wings on the side. So crazy. I love it. Yeah.
I would love those outfits though. They're so like the satin and pleather, deep V's.
There's patent leather elements. There's like satiny elements. It's crazy. High boots.
Now,
there's a lot going on.
In prep for this, I told you I watched both cuts of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, we're primarily talking about the Lester, but if you go back and you watch the Donner cut, it's almost like they used a little bit of CG to make that patent leather red. They added a little bit of color to it. Like, it's not in every scene, but in the first scene where they arrive to planet Houston,
right?
He's
Love it.
when he comes out of the water, it's very noticeable that his patent leather thigh-high boots are red.
We'll have to watch that. Okay, all right.
It kind of comes and goes.
Yeah.
But it's like they tried to add an element of color to these.
Yeah.
Just like, I wouldn't even say drab all black because the patent leather and the
Yeah.
satin, it's like contrasting.
Gives it some pizzazz
Yeah.
with that shine. I loved those scenes when they first land on Planet Houston and Ursa's discovering her like heat vision. Love it. As a kid, I was like,
She
this
picks up
is
the
so
snake.
fucking cool.
Yeah.
She picks up the snake and then burns it.
Yeah.
But that leads to one of my favorite things. She looks at Zod and she says, "We have powers beyond belief on this planet." And then Zod, matter of fact, goes, "We all do."
We all do.
And then just walks away.
Duh.
Turns and walks away.
Yeah.
Yeah, how Terence Stamp underplays that performance is so brilliant. Just because Zod is just unimpressed by all of planet Earth.
By
And just
everything.
every single thing that comes out of, like, Zod is so unimpressed with everything that he's being told.
Yeah. Everything he's being told and everything he sees is like a child's
Yeah.
toy.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Because Ursa is like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. She's commenting on stuff for like, the audience that's like, screenwriting right there. She's like letting us know that they weren't aware of these powers because they get thrown into the Phantom Zone before Krypton is destroyed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they don't even know about like, Jor-El sending his son off in the Christmas star off to like, to Earth to save the humans.
I love that ship design.
That star, it's super
It's so
cool.
good.
I mean, calling it the Christmas star, it's like, I feel like if you're a Superman kind of like super fan, you kind of have to know about all of the like religious themes, Siegel and Schuster.
Yeah, Siegel and Schuster.
Siegel and
yeah.
Schuster.
There's a Christ allegory with Superman.
What?
Oh.
But the thing is, the creators of Superman are, two Jewish men. I feel like the whole thing is like, they were either they're immigrants or they're like sons of, first generation sons of immigrants.
I believe they're first generation,
Yeah.
and they were trying to tell the ultimate immigrant story
Yeah,
with
sure.
Superman.
And Superman, the whole thing that like people don't get or, is that Superman is this all-American character and he stands for truth, justice, and the American way and all that stuff. But he's an immigrant. He's an alien, and it's very like he's from another planet and all that. But when you really look into it, it's like it's this allegory that these people are writing to talk about their experience as Jews living in the United States in like the 40s.
That's the
like
thing is that
outside.
it's
Yeah.
not like I just kind of lazily go to a Christ allegory because that's kind of the first thing that you think of, that Superman is this very like Jesus figure.
Yeah.
But you're right, that's really interesting.
Well, it's very easy to
Yeah.
compare him to Christ when
Yeah.
you're looking at Zack Snyder's Man of Steel.
Yes.
Yes.
And Jor-El's telling him, you can save them all, and he floats out into space in a cross shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very easy to
Yeah.
get there.
I think
That's interesting.
didn't Bryan Singer do the same floating in space in the cross shape in Superman Returns?
Yeah, he flew up into the sun.
Yeah.
And he did the cross shape. and
Yeah.
yeah.
Same.
So the Bryan Singer Superman Returns was one of my first introductions to Superman 2 as a property. Before we get too into the movie, I just remember the pre-production of Superman Returns. There was so much media about it. There was so much about the casting of it, the laundry list of actors that were reading for both Superman and Lois Lane.
Yeah, well, and also the Donner cut, Superman Returns is the reason we were able to have
Yes.
the Donner cut and any footage of Brando at all
Yeah.
because they made a deal with the estate after Brando had passed away. But yeah, there's a lot of hubbub behind Superman Returns.
And when that teaser came out that was narrated by Brando,
Yeah.
like I knew that Brando was in the first movie, but I remember sitting in the theater just being like, wow.
Well, I mean, for someone who grew up on these movies,
That's
and then
impressive.
Hearing Brando, you're
Yeah.
like, it's kind of like what they're doing now with films like Halloween, where they're like, all
Sure.
the movies
Yeah.
made in between don't matter.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wait, so this is a sequel to Superman 2.
Yeah.
So we're going back.
It's a
Yeah.
very out of the box idea for a sequel, especially in the
Or a
mid 2000s.
reboot. A reboot.
2006,
Yeah,
yeah, like a soft reboot.
It works in some ways, and in other ways, I'm like, it's not as successful. I don't. With the casting, I feel like Brandon Routh is great.
Kate Bosworth is pretty miscast as Lois Lane.
She's not giving me Margot Kidder.
But see,
No.
here's the thing: is I feel like with that film, I don't feel like Brandon Routh was cast as Clark. Brandon Routh was cast as Christopher Reeve
Yes.
as
Yes.
Clark.
Yeah.
Same thing
Absolutely.
with Bosworth, that she's playing Margot Kidder, and it shines big through Kevin Spacey as he's playing Gene Hackman, playing Lex Luthor.
Totally. Going back a little bit, why isn't Brando in any of the Lester version at all?
It was a dispute that he had with the Salkinds.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And they were like, well, you know what, cut him out. They didn't want to pay him royalties.
Sure. Or he wanted an additional fee on top of his fee from the first movie.
Just like Connery in Highlander. Like he was like, I'll film more, but you got to pay me more.
Right.
And they just said, no royalties, we're not paying you anything extra. And you could see there's a lot of meat. If you go and watch the Donner cut, there's a lot of meat on them bones.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of Brando footage that was not in the first film.
Sure. Okay, that's interesting. And you know that what they did in the Lester cut, when they start the movie, it kind of rewinds all of Superman the movie and starts again at the trial of Zod and his two cronies, Ursa and what is his name, the tall one? Non. But rather than Jor-El coming out and kind of trying them, it's kind of, for a second there, it's kind of shown from their point of view. It shows them kind of like...
You get to see them break in. You get to see them do some of the dirty deeds that they're being punished for.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But then, again, rather than showing... They show the trial, but they don't show any of Jor-El. It's just kind of voiceover by Kryptonian elders.
I love those Kryptonian...
You three criminals have been caught in a further act of seditious treason. General Zod... Your only feeling was contempt for our society. Your only desire was to command. Ursa, the only feeling you showed was for your vicious general. Your only wish to rule at his side. Don, you are as without thought as you are without voice. This council has no hesitation in proclaiming you all guilty. Guilty.
Guilty. The big floating heads. Yeah, so good. The effect of the three of them in the flying album cover, like flying through space, so cool.
Love it.
I mean, that's like iconic, classic. You know, even the two hula hoops that are like around them, kind of like
the spinning three hula hoops and the beam of light
all that stuff, super easy practical effects, but it works. It looks so like spacey, otherworldly.
Yeah, it's effective.
And I love that it wasn't until Supergirl that we never got to see what the Phantom Zone was like.
Yeah.
You finally get to see inside the Phantom Zone in Supergirl.
Yeah. I was watching a bit of Superman the Animated Series.
God, it's so good.
And the Phantom Zone in that is wild.
Yeah.
Because I forgot who it was, that they get this beam and they like shoot somebody out of the Phantom Zone, but like the footage of inside, it's like this red, crazy, amorphous, like
they're just kind of floating
let me
around,
out. Yeah,
and it's like these like kind of black bubbles that kind of evokes like Jack Kirby art style,
right? Yeah, totally.
Very like Fourth World. It's very good.
Yeah,
but super wild. It's like you could see how people go mad in the Phantom Zone. You're just floating in nothing. Whereas Supergirl showed it's kind of this like rocky, kind of craggy hellscape.
Yeah. And
which they kind of brought back in Smallville. The Phantom Zone in Smallville is very like it looks very similar to what they did in Supergirl.
Right,
that's right.
I guess in the Snyder verse, they're just kind of put in this weird like stasis pod.
Like a stasis pod that looks like a penis.
They look like dildos.
They look like big penises. Yeah.
So I love that the villains in Superman 2. Yeah, like you said, Lex is pulling the strings, but he is kind of behind the scenes in most of the movie.
Yeah.
We were talking about today Miss Teschemacher, who
I love.
Valerie Perrine, so good.
I love her. She was such a great performance in the first Superman film.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until rewatching this. Lex takes her to the fortress.
Yep.
And then we forget about her.
And then what does he leave her there? Does she die?
Good luck getting home when your blimp
Yeah,
in your hot air balloon.
The next scene we see Lex. He's at the White House.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
by the way,
Just sneaks into the White
broke out of prison. Most wanted man in America.
Walks into the White House.
Walks into the White House.
I mean, granted, it was just infiltrated by 3 aliens that forced the president to
but you had to,
abdicate.
in a real world, which this movie is
No.
nowhere near. There had to be some sort of military presence
Oh, yeah,
outside
yeah.
watching these supervillains, and Lex just walks in.
He fully does like a Three Stooges, like peek around the corner, like, hello, anybody in there?
And speaking of Three Stooges, I really miss Otis in this film.
Yeah,
And
Otis. They did him so
that's-
dirty.
And that's Ned Beatty,
Ned Beatty.
who couldn't get on the hot air balloon.
And I love that besides Superman, Otis is the only other one that has theme music.
Oh, yeah, he does have that,
Bump,
like,
bump,
dopey,
bump.
yeah.
It's so fun. I love it.
And I don't know if it's just like a Richard Lester thing, just because you can tell the jokiness.
Are you
of
talking
his
about
direction.
their Austin Powers breakout of the prison? That's straight up like
yeah.
out of Goldmember.
Can we talk for a second about how Lex Luthor created hologram technology
Yeah.
in a prison?
So he he created holograms out of like sharpened toothbrushes and
Laundry
like,
soap? I don't know.
I don't know. But he did well. Again, Lex Luthor. I guess I would call myself a Superman casual. I'm familiar with the animated series, the Justice League animated series, the movies, really. But can you talk a little bit about Lex Luthor as a character? Like, what are his? He's a supervillain. In the movies, he's just kind of like an industrialist, maybe.
Well, especially in the Chris Reeves films, it's like Lex Luthor is very like muddy. Like, where does he get his money? In the first film, he's living underground in a subway.
Yeah,
and
that layer's cool. That like flooded.
Cool. And it's like the flooded tunnel that it's a pool now.
Yeah,
I love that. I'd live there any day of the week. I love it. But yeah, it's very strange who Lex Luthor is in these films, because then when you get to Superman 4, he's living in a high-rise.
Yeah.
Where does his money come from?
Yeah.
And that's what was interesting about Smallville, is that they introduced him, the son of like a Bill Gates billionaire.
Yeah, where in the comics, his father was very just like not in the picture. He was a self-made billionaire in the comics. But just like Superman, when you get to these new eras of these characters, they completely rebuild them from the ground up. Like at one point, Lex was very close to what you see in these films. We've gone through all these different iterations of Lex where he had a son who had like long flowing like red hair. Like, so we got to that kind of version of Lex Luthor where he wasn't bald. But yeah, the character himself, just like Superman, has been rebuilt so many times. But for the most part, he is like a billionaire industrialist.
Right.
What he does is not clear. He has military contracts. Lex seems like the type of guy who makes everything from like, soap to missiles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I like how in the animated series, and even in the like Lego DC villains like video game, they have him in this like power suit.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of him being kind of like an evil, air quotes, evil Elon Musk. Just like using technology to make himself a supervillain or a superhero kind of a character.
And he did go toe-to-toe several times with Superman in the comics because he used that technology. He built himself almost like an Iron Man style super suit, and he would fight Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas this version of Lex Luthor is much more subdued.
Right. So they give him kind of like super intelligence because he does make this.
Yeah.
He does fashion a hologram out of prison materials, and then he has Miss Teschemacher come to save them in a weather balloon. And the joke is that Ned Beatty,
he's too
Otis
fat to get on.
So
Too
fat.
He's pulling down a full balloon.
Yeah, one step at a time. Each step of the ladder, it just gets lower and lower. And I mean, funny, we're laughing, but it's just like, oh my god, this is so jokey.
Yeah, that survived into the Donner cut.
Okay,
but a lot of the jokey elements, what made Superman 2 so fun and kind of whimsical, were Lester.
Yeah. Lex also creates some sort of tracking machine. The idea is that they know that Superman continually flies north
from his flight patterns.
From his flight patterns. What's north? Why does he go there? We got to figure it out. That's got to be where his secret lair is. So I'm going to go north. So I've developed this black box. Right, he keeps referring to this black box, which is like, just get a compass, dude. All it's pointing you is north.
Just head north. They fly a balloon north, and then you see a giant like crystalline ice structure. Like, oh,
there it is.
Yeah, it's wild.
Love that. Miss Teschemacher is there. She's the one that comes to the weather balloon. She has her like cool like 1920s like pilot like leather cap and the goggles and all of that. Then her costume change in the Fortress of Solitude.
It's pretty fierce.
Oh
this
my
red,
God.
Like
furs.
Yeah, she's got to stay warm.
Yeah, she's got like a muff.
Where did they
fur hat.
Where did they find the snow machine?
Yeah, they leave, or no, they enter and exit on a snowmobile.
Right.
Where was that?
And he's telling her like mush, and it's a snowmobile.
Well, where did they get the change of clothes? Also, when they get into that basket in the prison, there's
pretty small.
there.
No, there's nothing in it. So they must have they planted this like snowmobile somewhere in the Arctic. My goodness, the Fortress of Solitude is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because, when later on in the movie, when he takes Lois there, she's like, "You live here?" And he's like, "No, I live like a block away from you."
Yet there's a dinette set and a bed.
Exactly.
That
buck bed.
That bed.
The Superman fuck bed.
It's like
that giant bed with the silver satin sheets.
It's all made of silver satin,
God.
and it's kind of set up like a weird like hammock style.
Well, I love
because it's like hanging.
They have to stay on theme with the silver.
Yeah.
Even if you look at the dinette set, there's these big crystals on the table that have to look like they're part of the fortress.
Yes.
It's insane.
I want to see Lois like walking around like, oh, is this forme decor? I think I have this in my living room.
I have this pillow. So
the Fortress of Solitude, sponsored by the Interior Illusions Lounge.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that the technology on Krypton is based on these like crystals.
It's organic crystal based,
Right.
which was something that was new to these films.
Oh, okay.
In the comics up to this point, they just had advanced technology.
Sure.
So they had robots. Like it's more, it's very similar to what they did in Man of Steel with the robots that were floating around the ship.
Yeah.
He had two robots in the fortress named Kelex and Kelor.
Right.
So everything was very looked earthbound, but it was just more advanced.
Okay.
The crystals came from these films.
Okay. Interesting.
And they stuck around in the comics for a while
because
of it.
And even in Man of Steel, I feel like with they kind of they're not crystals, but they're like these weird pieces, like the key, the Superman symbol key, and all that. But it's based on this kind of weird organic metallic
that moves
shape
and shifts.
shifting.
Yeah, that's very cool technology.
Yeah,
I did really enjoy that.
Yeah, but yeah, the flying robots, they're there in Superman Doomsday with Anne Heche.
Yeah, Anne Heche voices Lois.
Yes.
Yeah. So many great voice actors.
Carrie Russell did like a stint, right?
She did.
Lois?
She did Wonder Woman.
Oh, Wonder Woman. Okay.
She did the one Wonder Woman movie before they brought in Rosario
Dawson for the current DC animated
films.
films.
She kind of took over for a lot. But yeah,
which is Superman and those are voiced by Jerry O'Connell. Which why did he never get a chance to play Superman?
Because he lost out that audition to Dean Cain.
He has the look.
Yeah, he totally has the look.
He lost an audition to a football player.
Yeah. I did grow up a little bit on Lois and Clark with Dean Cain.
Oh, I'm not bashing Lois and Clark. I love Lois and Clark. Also has a very silly campiness to it, just like these films.
Who's the voice of Superman in the Lego movie?
It's Channing Tatum.
Yeah,
it's Channing Tatum.
I think they went funny with that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Jonah Hill was Green Lantern.
Yes.
So it was Channing Tatum because they were together all the time around that time.
Oh,
after
okay.
the 21 Jump Street. Yeah.
Yeah. They did a bunch of
They
stuff
became
together.
like big buddies.
Mm-hmm. So, the Fortress of Solitude stuff is interesting. Really, yeah. The crystal stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, okay. I guess those are computers.
I like Mrs. Teschemacher saying it's a crystal, and Gene Hackman's like, no, it's not.
One thing that always confused me when I was a kid, and you get it a lot in Superman 1 and 2, is there's this main crystal that activates everything.
The green one?
The green one.
Yeah.
They call it a sunstone in the comics. They never refer to it as sunstone here. It's
No.
like the main crystal. It always confused me when I was a kid that it was green.
Why is it green? Because
I was like, that's
kryptonite. Yeah.
Right? It's green.
Yeah. Which, no kryptonite in Superman 2.
Yeah.
No?
They just fully take his powers away.
Yeah. And then it makes a return in Superman 3.
Yes.
And then after that, we just have super fingernails in 4.
So in Superman 2, all of the Kryptonian like archival footage, these holograms that Jor-El has kind of created and programmed to teach his son about his past, and
And they're holograms
Krypton.
that can talk back to him, too.
It's AI,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You know,
like
it's
interactive,
a really sophisticated Siri. Kind of a thing. But because Brando said, hell no, you can't use me in this movie, it's all Lara.
It's all his mother. Yeah.
Who is this actress? It is
I'm not sure.
Susanna York. Academy
York.
Award nominee Susanna York from
Okay.
They Shoot Horses, Don't They?
Oh, okay. Not familiar. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. You're just like, well, why? I mean, I guess if Jor-El is making this for his son, why wouldn't he program,
Yeah. His
Kal-El's mother to be in it as well? So
But when I was a kid watching this, that never occurred to me. I mean, you don't know about these things when you watch movies. You just,
Yeah.
you get to see Jor-El a lot in the first movie,
Yeah.
and you get to see his mother in this movie.
yeah. So, and then there's like one other guy who is like an encyclopedia guy.
Yeah. Which,
Just-
in the Donner cut, non-existent.
Gone? Okay.
It's all Jor-El in the Donner
Okay.
cut, completely. No
Interesting.
mom, no nothing. That's all Jor-El.
Interesting. All right.
Can we talk a little bit, since we're kind of just going through just sections of this movie, because there's no point of recapping this movie because there's just too much of it. Can we talk a little bit about Lois Lane and her wish with death? Just zero chill in this
Oh, my
movie.
God.
So in the Donner cut, she jumps out of the office window.
Immediately.
And
Like 10 minutes
in the theatrical cut, the one that we watched, just jumps off of Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
Well, after climbing into an elevator on the Eiffel Tower
Yes.
that's equipped with a bomb.
Yeah. Underneath
Yeah.
the elevator. Not even in an elevator. She's on like
Underneath.
the railing underneath the elevator.
Yeah,
I
because
mean-
it's the Eiffel Tower, so it's all open. So she climbs in.
The lengths that this bitch will go to win that fucking Pulitzer.
Yeah, does she have a Pulitzer yet in these movies?
Well,
or
didn't
she's
she
going
win one for Superman? Why the world doesn't need Superman
Yeah.
Returns?
Well, that's in Returns,
Or
yeah.
In between.
why does it need Superman?
In between 2 and Returns,
Yeah.
when he left.
Which
Yes.
why are they giving out that Pulitzer for that article? That should be like an article in like Redbook or something.
She had very intimate knowledge of Superman. So,
Very.
she but yeah, Lois Lane, and the portrayal in these movies is really I love Margot Kidder.
Love Margot Kidder.
See-
Movies that made us gay all-star from Black Christmas.
Oh yeah,
See,
Yep.
Margot Kidder as Lois Lane is kind of a hot button issue for me.
yeah.
I love these films. I love Chris Reeve in these films. I like Lois in these films. I was never a fan of Margot Kidder
Right.
as Lois.
I like she's just kind of a little kooky.
She's very kooky.
Yep.
Oh, I mean, if you're talking about kooky in this movie, you're talking about a woman who is constantly drinking orange juice because it's healthy while she's chain smoking.
Chain smoking.
Yes.
Yeah. It's natural. It's like a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. Yeah, this character is too much. So, okay. I don't know which is worse, jumping out of a damn
Yeah.
50-story
They're both
window.
crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah, there's different versions of how she tries to get him to reveal himself,
Yeah.
depending on which cut you're watching.
Yeah.
Donner cut, she jumps out of a window immediately, like 10 minutes in. She's on to Clark as Superman
Yeah.
from the start of the film.
I love
Yeah.
her doing her little impromptu sketch of Clark when she
On the newspaper?
when she draws
Oh, yeah.
Clark over
Yeah.
Superman.
The Sharpie, and she draws
Yeah.
little glasses on. But see, very different in the theatrical, like Lester cut. She waits
Yeah.
until they go to Niagara Falls for this story, and then she jumps into the water to get Clark to save her. And both versions, he does not fall. for it.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
He's like, nope, we're going to figure this shit out. That scene in Niagara Falls where the little boy is on the other side of the railing and he's just like playing and playing and playing. That used to like give me so much anxiety as a kid. I'm like, oh my God.
See, I got the anxiety
What the
from
hell?
Lois underneath the the elevator going up. I was like, oh, I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, crazy. And then, he eventually does fall in. Clark is off to get Lois. Okay, again, Lois Lane, obsessed with her. She read a book where this guy says, if you get X amount of vitamin C a day, you'll never get sick. So she's like, has to have her freshly squeezed orange juice every day. So she says, Clark, I'm hungry. Go get me 2 hot dogs with everything on it and a glass of freshly squeezed orange.
Are both hot dogs for Lois, or is she going to share one?
I'm assuming they're both for her.
She said two.
Right. Okay.
I think she said
think
two.
Lois can, despite Margot Kidder being a
Very
small
thin,
woman.
yeah.
I feel like Lois can pack it away.
I think so too. She'll put away both those hot dogs. Yeah, I think she orders 2. So he's off doing that, and this kid falls in, turns into Superman, goes and saves the kid. As he's saving the kid, flying up from the bottom of Niagara Falls, and everybody's like clapping and cheering, you hear, kind of not even faintly, you hear a woman say, "Of course he's Jewish."
I believe it's the same woman. You also hear like this is like Jewish grandmother going, "What a nice man!
What a nice man!" Yeah, yeah,
that's so great.
I love it. And so this is when I feel like in the theatrical in the Lester cut, this is really when Lois is just like, oh shit, where is Clark? Clark? Maybe because in the Donner cut, it's the beginning of the movie. She's like, okay.
Well, the Paris incident isn't even in the Donner
completely
cut.
Completely
cut out.
Yeah.
They go straight to Niagara Falls. That's their story, and she's on to him from the get go. But yeah, she really starts to suspect here.
Yeah.
But in the theatrical, I like their little line of dialogue of, we really have to get to work on this.
Here we are
on this honeymoon
exposition
subplot of this movie.
Yeah. Which, can we talk about this honeymoon suite?
Love that honeymoon suite. It's giving me very like Madonna Inn.
There are pillars in this room, floor to ceiling pillars that are lava lamps.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the pillars around the bed. 4 pillars around the bed, full lava lamps. 7-foot lava lamps.
Yeah, which connect at the top to a chandelier over the bed.
So what do you think that this like honeymoon scam was supposed to be?
It's unclear.
It's unclear. Like, I mean, I take it that they were overcharging.
What are they exposing?
But it's like, of course they're overcharging couples because they're shelling out for this room that probably should be like a grand a night.
Suite at the Niagara Falls. Yeah, of course they're overcharging people.
And I like that it's a honeymoon suite in Niagara Falls. It's huge. It's got this giant centerpiece fireplace.
The conversational firepiece.
Yeah.
Fire pit there.
Fire pit. The crazy 4-poster, lava lamp bed with the chandelier. All this crazy shit. It's on levels. There's like steps. But it is clearly shot in a soundstage because the windows never open.
You never see a ceiling.
Yeah.
And it's like, wouldn't this fabulous Niagara Falls honeymoon suite have a view?
Yeah. They're at Niagara Falls for a reason.
I think they kind of opened the curtains to like other sheer curtains.
I think Clark looks out, but you never get to see what he's looking at.
Because it's clearly this is a soundstage. And it only has 3 walls. But yeah, this room is amazing. This bellhop, fuck this guy.
Oh, yeah.
No tip for you.
So smarmy.
Oh, my God.
There's even kind of a little...
First time here, first time together.
I was going to say, there's even kind of a little sexual tension between this bar hop and Clark.
Yeah. Congratulations on whatever this is. Mm-hmm. What the fuck? How is he still have a job? Is it his first day?
Is he running the scam?
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Is this scam? This dude? Like, what the hell? And Clark tips him. Because of course he does, because he's Clark Kent.
Yeah, he's Clark Kent.
Going to tip everybody.
He sends half his paycheck home to his gray-haired mother. Of course he does.
With the paycheck, sending it home. It's so crazy.
What a nice man.
What a nice man. And I love that he fully asks, and this is in the first movie, when he gets the job at the Daily Planet, he asks Perry White, the editor of the Daily Planet, about his paycheck.
That's an HR question.
That is
exactly.
Like, cost payroll. I don't know. Do whatever the hell you want.
Well, I mean,
I don't take care of it.
I mean, Perry White is laying out these headlines on his desk. So he's been like
manually.
He's stretched pretty thin. Like he's doing the headlines himself.
Yeah, at his own desk. The editor is fully just like letter by letter.
But I'd love to see just a handwritten note. Send half check home to Kansas.
To Smallville. Oh, my goodness.
No one else works in this building.
He does it all. He literally signs the checks one at a time.
I don't know if you noticed, but Richard Lester gave Lois an upgrade. She has an office in this cut.
Okay.
She had a desk in the first one?
In the Donner cut. Even in the Donner cut, she's still in the bullpen next to Clark.
Interesting.
In this cut, she has an office.
Oh, yeah, that's right. In the suit that she jumps out the window. Yeah. I love that costume where she jumps out the window. It's like a peach pink coral like skirt in a blouse and a big wide white necktie.
Yeah.
Love it. And I
working
also,
woman of the 1980s.
Yeah, 70s. It is
1970s, yeah.
I mean, if we were talking about being filmed along with Superman 1, 70s. Yeah, 77 probably filmed.
And also, when they go to the honeymoon suite, she's wearing like the big hat, which is very like super 70s. Like she's wearing like a big white hat. And the bellhop also says like, "Oh, if you need help lifting her up, it's tradition." And she's like, "No." So Lois starts to kind of she's catching on to Superman, throws herself into Niagara Falls. He does the full I like that he uses the heat vision to give her a branch, the smallest branch.
But
grab on, Lois.
What kills me is he uses his heat vision through his glasses.
Yeah.
He doesn't even do the pull down. He heat visions through his glasses to break off a tiny branch.
It's so small
that somehow saved her life.
Yeah, how did that? What did he even do? She eventually went.
And it's like, meanwhile, don't take out Lois with the tree branch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was like so far ahead of her too. I'm like, how's she going to catch up to that little floating stick? But she does.
And then she makes her way to the shore.
Yeah, and Clark clumsily falls in to save her, and she ends up saving him.
I love it.
But so it's not until we're back in the hotel room where Clark clumsily falls into the fire pit. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "Oh, let me see your hand. Let me see your hand." And she grabs this giant mitt of a hand. Mm-hmm. Those shots, and I don't know if they're insert shots or what, if it's actually Margot Kidder holding on to Chris Reeve's hand. But those shots in the movie, his hand looks gigantic in her tiny little hand.
Well, I mean, he's probably a full foot and a half taller than she is.
Yeah.
So he's just a big guy.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem
so
it, but
crazy.
He is.
Yeah. And that's when she's like, okay, what the hell? How was your hand fully in the fire pit?
This is when she finally gets it out of him.
Yeah. And he just kind of like admits it, right?
He admits it, but he has a little bit of a tantrum first. I think he
I didn't want to have to tell you. Yeah. And in this scene, he's wearing like a cool, like a cardigan, like a button-down cardigan with like a collar and pockets. He's got some cool looks as Clark.
Very like GQ man of the late 70s.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know why I did that.
Maybe you wanted to.
I don't think I did.
Well, maybe you didn't want to with your mind, but maybe you wanted to with your heart.
We better talk.
I'm in love with you.
So we really better talk.
I'm listening.
We can't talk here. Perry's going to be calling about 6 to find out what's happening.
What's happening? That's the understatement of the year.
So this is when he's just like, okay, well, I told you, so I might as well like tell you the whole story.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning, too, that for me, Chris Reeve is the ultimate Clark Kent Superman because of the way he portrays the two characters. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, to this day, still argue, how could Lois not know he's Superman? It's a pair of glasses. It's not a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
If you look at the way Chris Reeve plays this, there's a great scene in the first film where he tries to tell Lois who he is. He's constantly just slouched over as Clark. He raises his voice just a couple octaves higher the whole time he's talking.
Yeah.
And then the glasses, of course, help. And his hair is parted a different direction.
Yeah.
Superman versus Clark.
Totally.
But that scene where he tries to tell her, you see him straighten out his back and his hair, not his hair, just thinking about the stupid part.
Yeah.
The voice gets deeper. It's a whole transformation. It's a completely different character.
Yeah.
And no one.
They don't do that at all in the Zack Snyder movies.
No one has been able to do it since Chris Reeve or like Chris Reeve. No, they give up on it completely in the Zack Snyder films. It's like Lois finds out he's Superman in the first movie. It's like his attempt to be Clark Kent is like, just don't be seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the Zack Snyder film. Which, I mean, to a degree I enjoy because Lois is supposed to be this just great reporter. She's supposed to be able to figure these things out. She does, and that's great. And they made Lois a strong, smart woman.
So we got to talk about this crystal chamber. After the Fortress of Solitude, like, romantic dinner.
Their little dinner date.
Yeah.
Where he flies and gets Lois flowers. From, like, the Caribbean?
He brings her some takeout.
Just like, yeah.
No, he comes back with a bag of groceries that he's going to make.
Yeah,
so the Fortress of Solitude has like a kitchen.
Does it have like a microwave?
I'm learning all kinds of new things about the Fortress of Solitude.
It's got its crazy silver spiderweb like fuck chamber. And that's when he makes the wild decision. Well, it's not even really his decision. It's kind of Lara kind of tells him, like, if you're going to be with her, you have to be with her, like, as a human.
Yeah.
So this is her, like Liv Tyler, Lord of the Rings, like, well, I've got to give up my immortality to be with you, lowly human. And for some reason, the Fortress of Solitude has harnessed the power of the red sun of Krypton. Or dual suns? Do they have?
It's just a red sun, yeah. It's just a single red sun.
Yeah. And if he goes in this, like, this crystal, which clearly looks plastic, chamber, it will take away his power.
And he's not changed back with the Earth sun. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
He gets his power from the Earth's yellow sun, but does nothing to him here.
No. So he's just infused with
let it slide.
So much red, you know. What does he call it? What does he tell? A molecule chamber?
A molecule chamber, yeah.
So many molecules are just like running all through him that it's just like sunblock.
And see, this is another big departure from the Donner Cut, too. The Donner Cut, this whole sequence is much more sacrificial, it seems like. And he's talking to Jor-El, and Jor-El's actually trying to talk him out of it.
Oh, okay.
In the Donner Cut, it's his decision. Jor-El says you can't put one human above all of humanity.
Okay, yeah. That makes more sense.
Completely different cut of this scene.
Yeah. Interesting.
They kind of let him know of the stakes that are involved.
Yeah.
All to fuck Lois Lane.
Because it's that classic conversation. If he doesn't do it, he'll just blast right through her.
What Kevin Smith movie was that from? Was it Clerks or Mallrats?
Mallrats.
Okay.
There's a lot.
I thought it was Mallrats.
There's a lot of superhero fucking conversation in Mallrats.
The only one that he can have sex with and bang is Wonder Woman.
Safely. I mean, he'll just blow right through Lois if he doesn't. So they don't actually do it until after he goes to the red chamber. Okay, interesting. So he becomes human, and then we get the crazy scene in the truck stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just to show his vulnerability now.
Yeah.
Which this scene, when I was a kid, always made me sad.
I don't like this scene either. I get that it's so there as a purpose.
Bums me out.
It's to show that he's weak now. Yeah. But also, without superpowers, does Clark Kent not know how to throw a punch?
Right? Like, he can't even defend himself. It's like
he's a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
He towers over this guy he's fighting,
yeah.
actually.
And the dude's older than him. Yeah. It's like
although the guy does throw a lot of sucker punches. Almost every hit is a sucker punch.
The back of the head? What the hell?
Elbow when he's sitting down.
Dirty fighter.
But Clark is in like a new body. He's not used to his
he's a baby bird.
Yeah.
He's not used to his regular human puny body.
And now that he's Clark, but he's human Clark, he doesn't wear all the product in his hair.
No product, yeah.
So now he's got his like floppy...
That 70s.
Yeah, 70s hair. Which is like... I love it.
Yeah.
It's such a cool look on him.
Who did you compare him to?
It's like 80s Bruce Jenner hair.
80s Bruce Jenner hair, yeah.
From back in the day. So we this scene bums the hell out of me every time.
Yeah, when he's laying on the ground bleeding and he's like looking at his blood in disbelief and he's like, my blood.
My blood.
My blood.
Yeah, so crazy. But then this is when on the TV it's like special report, you know.
We've got to move the story forward.
Special report, our Earth has been like
taken over.
And
I love that the President of the United States is like, and I speak on behalf of the entire Earth.
Which I have to say for this president character, it's just like he didn't really put up a fight.
Well, he used a Padme style decoy. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And he also said, but he does say, like, I'm going to try and save lives.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason I'm doing this is because I don't want,
He there's a prerequisite. He's like, I'll do it,
Yeah.
but I'm doing it to save lives.
Yeah.
And Zod's like, well, yours.
He's probably not.
yours.
I mean, he's not going to be winning his re-election campaign after the events of this movie.
Oh, no.
But, there are only 3 of them. I know they have superpowers, but it's like, if the entire world is like, come on. We outnumber them.
Have we tried just evacuating DC and nuking it?
Yeah. What the hell?
They sat there for days.
Doing what?
Being bored.
Hanging
And it's
out.
like,
Yeah.
meanwhile-
The Oval Office.
Meanwhile, like, all 3 of them, what are they going to do on Earth?
What's their end game?
Like, what's their end game? Like, they're just going to take over the White House.
Well, they showed him. They were just sitting around the Oval Room, as as Lex Luthor calls it, hanging around the Oval Room.
These 2 are going to be bored in, like, the first hour of taking over Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like when, it's on in the... First of all, the staff at the truck stop, they got to just 86 this guy. They knew he was trouble coming in.
Yeah, they hear his truck coming up, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah, Mr. Personality.
Damaging property, beating up patrons.
Yeah.
You can just say, you know what? You're not welcome
Yeah,
here anymore.
no, get out. We're not going to serve you. Yeah. So after all this shit goes down, there's like broken glass everywhere. Clark is like bleeding on the floor, and she's like, all right, everybody, show's over. I'm turning on the TV. Love
Turn
it.
on the box.
The box.
The box.
But then after like we get this crazy announcement, the like cook or whatever is like, that's enough of that. Just turns it off.
Right?
Nobody wants any follow-up information.
USA's been taken over by aliens. We're done. I'm good.
Yeah. They don't have their phones to pull out. They have to watch TV.
I think Columbo's on.
Yeah. Change it over to Matlock. Or Hotel or something that would have been on in the 80s.
Love Boat?
Yeah.
Maybe Love Boat.
Love Boat. Does Superman immediately just figure he's got to go back?
Yeah, after he gets his ass kicked.
How
and
does
he
he get
sees
back
Zod.
to the Fortress of Solitude?
Walks.
There's a long walking
Yeah.
montage. He just walks back to the
He
North
walks
Pole.
all the way back to the North Pole.
That's how he got there in the first movie. Quote,
Yeah.
air quotes, teenage Clark Kent. I'm still mad at the casting of this teenage Clark Kent.
Oh, yeah, the one who was like in his mid to late 20s.
What? He's like a year younger than Chris Reeve. Why did they cast this guy? It should have been a way younger kid, but a way younger kid couldn't have walked, I guess, to Antarctica. But, or the North Pole, I guess. Antarctica South. So he gets back to the Fortress of Solitude and finds the green crystal. And
he finds the plot device.
Yeah, we get a cutaway. So he figures it out.
Yeah. Whereas there's much more to that scene in the Donner cut. There's
Yeah.
a whole dialogue with Jor-El.
Mm-hmm.
And Jor-El says, I can do this. I can give you back your powers.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, but it's going to be at a cost. The fortress, myself, will be at no use to you. Yeah. If he chooses to go back, he gets his powers, but that's it. He gets no more contact with Jor-El, Krypton, Heritage, anything. It's done. So the sacrifice to become human in the Donner cut has much more weight.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that kind of sets up Superman Returns, because the whole thing is that after the events of this movie, Superman 2, he just leaves for like a bunch of years.
He goes to find Krypton.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, because it's not really set up that way. It's not set up at all. He just looks around, spots the green crystal, and we cut away back to the White House.
Yeah, there's a little bit more setup for it in the Donner cut. You can see him kind of looking through rubble, because the control where he put in the green crystal in the Donner cut explodes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's all black and
like
destroyed
charred.
in the theatrical.
Yeah, but you get more of that in the Donner cut. And he actually like searches for the crystal and then finds it, puts it in, has the conversation with Jor-El.
Sure. Because Lois kind of is... She has it in her hands, and she's just kind of messing with it, and I think she just drops it on the ground.
Yeah.
At some point.
At some point, she just drops it. And I think that's where he finds it. He just sees it off in the distance, like glowing.
Okay.
And making that high-pitched squeal.
Sure. And I guess they found a car somewhere, because they drove up to this truck stop.
Yeah. They did. They were in a car.
Yeah.
Whose car was that?
Yeah, because Lois has to get herself back to Metropolis somehow, so she
like
just
the
drives
snowmobile
it.
question.
Yeah.
Well,
Where
they
are
end
getting
up
all
in
these
like
vehicles?
they end up in like Glacier.
Yeah, they're driving through, and they're in like...
They're in like the mountains.
Yeah, they're in the mountains. And the truck stop is in the middle of nowhere, it looks like.
None of these things would fly in a modern superhero movie. Like none of them.
All that stuff gets picked apart so easy now, you know?
Yeah.
Especially with like YouTube and
And
Twitter
we've
and
talked
all that
about
stuff. It's like
we've talked about this before. That I mean, audiences were not really doing that at this time in the early 80s.
Yeah. And there was no platform to do it. Maybe you thought maybe if you were the kind of person that saw it multiple times in the theater and then thought about it or saw some review or somebody talked about it, but other than that, like where would you write about it for other people to read it and figure it out and everybody comment on it? It's YouTube and it's Twitter now where people get into this like crazy.
I also think audiences back then were just more willing to suspend disbelief and just
they
enjoy a film.
They were happy to have a Superman movie.
Yeah. I mean, because prior to this, 10 years before Superman, they would have never even thought they'd see this type of film.
Yeah. Totally.
And then, the floodgates were opened with Star Wars and this movie. It's just like, it's insane what came after this.
Yeah.
That both of those movies, both of these franchises just really opened the doors to so many things.
Yeah. So, yeah, as far as like mainstream successful, like, almost like prestige movies, like Batman and Superman are just like...
Yeah, it was like Superman kind of set the standard.
Yeah.
And then we didn't really have anything until Batman in 89.
Yeah.
Which, much like Superman, changed a lot of the source material, which then became canon for the character.
Yeah, I was going to say, what they did in those movies, it wasn't like... What the animated movies do so well, the DC animated movies, is they pick particular storylines, and they're like, boom, we're going to do that. And then they follow them, fairly well. But I think, especially with Batman, they were just like picking and choosing from all over the place.
Same with Superman. It's Superman and Batman. They just kind of chose familiar characters and themes, and they just wrote original stories.
Yeah.
Kind of leading with casting, especially for the 89 Batman movie.
Yeah. So we should talk about their final showdown in Metropolis.
Boy. So good.
We always give modern superhero movies a lot of shit for destroying cities.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, especially after Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Man of Steel, which is like September 11th times 10.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're like, why do they have to destroy the city in every movie?
They were doing it in this movie.
But they really knocked the hell out of Metropolis in this movie.
Metropolis gets fucked up.
It's a smaller, scale.
Yeah, it's I love a certain area.
Yeah, a couple of
I love
blocks.
all of the extras that they got in this scene.
Oh yeah, the extras were just like playing it up, which is also another Lester thing.
Yeah,
a lot of this silliness is out in the Donner cut. I think Lester really played around with the idea of just this kind of silly humor aspects of it, like the two cops when we first get the trio in Idaho.
Yeah,
there's a long scene before we see Zod, Ursa, and Nan where they're just talking about eating fish.
Yeah. Yeah, what is this?
I don't want to eat fish. And, and then you get a lot of that with these extras in this scene.
So there's in particular there's a whole set piece where Zod is using his super breath to
both of them.
Yeah. Zod and Ursa or Nan, maybe all three of them.
I think it was all three of them. I think they stood in a formation and they were using their breath
to use their super breath. They get Superman thrown up against a bus and another bus on top of him. It's a whole big accident. But while this is all happening, there's some crazy nonsense with the people in the crowd. We've got a woman's wig flies off her head.
Yep.
Isn't there a guy carrying food that flies out of his hands?
There, an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
Flies off the cone. The ice cream flies into somebody's face. Someone in a phone booth. The phone booth gets knocked over, dragged several feet.
Still having a conversation.
That's
still talking on the phone.
It's like something that would happen to Mole Man on The Simpsons.
Yeah. To say nothing of the roller skating mime.
Yeah.
It was blown away on skates. I always remember they pick up a bus and it's got a bus ad for Evita. The play Evita. And as a kid, I was like, what is that? Is that a word? What is Evita? I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
But as a kid, you always saw it right there, in front of your face. Just like you see the Marlboro cigarettes truck.
That shot of Superman going through the cigarette truck is crazy. And that's kind of one of those things that when you watch a Transformers movie and you just bitch about the product placement, but this movie is just as bad as those ones are.
Oh, yeah. Marlboro, Coca-Cola everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Lois's brand of cigarettes is Marlboro.
Oh,
you see her
they have
chain
to
smoking.
be. Yeah, they have to be.
And I think they're drinking Cokes at the desks. Yeah.
Just smoking a pack of Reds in the office.
Why not?
What a time.
With your orange juice? What else?
Yeah.
It's healthy.
To wash it down. Oh, man. So, but Superman does lure them away from the city, which was a big complaint of Man of Steel.
That's right.
Yes.
Why doesn't
That's
Superman
why
lure them
our
away?
friend and past guest Dylan did not like Man of Steel.
Yeah.
It was for that very reason.
Well, they also kind of learned their lesson in Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
When they're fighting Doomsday at the end, they talk about taking them to Gotham Harbor because there's less structures and less people.
Yeah.
So they kind of learned their lesson there. But yeah, it was a big point of contention for a lot of people. So much destruction.
Although in this movie, when he does leave, he doesn't get a chance to tell everybody, like, I'm luring them away. He just takes off, and everybody's like, what the hell?
And they call him a coward.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, Superman just left us. And
Yeah.
then there's that one bitchy woman in the office that really doesn't like Superman for some reason.
What is her deal?
And she's hot for non. She's like, ooh, that big one.
Yeah. He's just as powerful as Superman.
She likes a strong, silent type.
Yeah, totally. I forget about her. Oh, man.
Lois, like, fully puts her hand on that woman's face and pushes her away.
Yeah. There's some crazy stuff with the way people get thrown through buildings in this movie, though.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, they pretty much just make a new window in the Daily Planet.
yeah, totally.
I love that supervillains have no respect for doors. I mean, even whenever they fly out and make a new window, but even when they're walking in, Non just walks
bust
in
through
like
walls.
kicking down walls.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, totally.
So much sugar glass. It's great.
But yeah, so Superman does eventually lead them back to the Fortress of Solitude with the intention of putting them in the molecule chamber, right? I love the fact that they fly Lex and Lois on their backs.
Zod carries no one.
No. And so they show Lois on Non's back, so that means that Ursa is carrying Lex Luthor on her back from Metropolis all the way to the North Pole.
Is that just a show of disrespect?
I want to say that they asked Gene to do that scene, and he was like, no.
You know, there's a lot of stuff with him bumbling around the background, climbing down like ice walls, and I'm like, is that Gene?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually him. Okay. The crazy like Superman crests, like cellophane.
The cellophane net.
What is going on?
Like he just doesn't even peel off. It like duplicates.
And
he throws it
just
into a
appears.
cellophane net that does nothing.
No.
Essentially nothing.
It slows him down.
Like for a second.
Yeah, for a second. There are some powers that they exhibit in this movie that are questionable.
Yeah, well, I love the creating new powers to fit the scene.
Yes. Yeah.
Because at one point they even say you have all the same powers as Superman, but seemingly they have telekinesis.
Yes.
Like when they pull the gun out of the cop's hand, they point and a white beam comes out of their finger and they pull. It's like, well, I've never seen Superman do that.
Yeah.
And then this fight, the cellophane S is one thing, but then they all seemingly duplicate themselves.
Yeah.
Using, I guess they're just moving really fast, and it seems like, I mean, if I'm trying to put like some sort of real world,
yeah.
But then they duplicate themselves. And this is something Superman has done several times before because he says he used to do this in school.
I was like, what? In Smallville?
Mm-hmm.
When did you do this
to other
school?
children?
Yeah. I thought it was kind of like talking about Krypton, but he couldn't have because he was never there. Yeah, that is weird.
It's the creating powers, and this is a trend that continues throughout the films. In Superman
it gets
4,
worse. Yeah,
in 4, Nuclear Man destroys the Great Wall of China. Superman flies behind him and has blue fix-it vision, and he fixes the Great Wall of China.
That scene in particular.
This is a trend that continues through all of the films.
The fix-it vision is just like it kind of reverses.
And it rebuilds the wall.
And don't get me started on Superman spinning the Earth the other way around and
to reverse time.
Reverse time.
That's not how time works.
Yeah.
You just destroyed the planet.
You don't know. It could.
That would like put the Earth off its axis or something.
But that's
just like
one of those things. Audiences this time just didn't. They're like, yeah, exactly.
And that's something that you would have seen in a comic from like the 30s.
And I think that's what these films did really well. Is like Superman is wearing a bright, colorful costume. You know, he's doing crazy things like reversing time by flying backwards. It's like people, like audiences at this time, just like got like they're fine. Yeah, that works. That completely works. And I think the costuming choices and everything of these like earlier superhero films. I mean, Marvel's kind of getting it now, but the costumes are so like. I don't know. They're so thick and like formed, and where I miss the simple days of like a superhero just put on tights.
Yeah,
I mean, look at the Phantom. So going back to the Phantom, Billy Zane was just wearing purple tights.
Yep,
you know,
totally,
and it worked.
At least
the
with
movie might not have worked, but it worked, you know?
At least with Thor, they're giving him a lot of the sleeveless costumes.
Yeah,
they're showing off his arms a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's
really it.
I think. I mean, I've told you guys this before. That's a big problem for me. It's like Chris Reeves wasn't the most built guy, but he was in good shape and he wore tights and it looked good on him.
Yeah.
You get to people like Chris Evans, Henry Cavill, these people that have just the most impressive physiques, but then we're going to put them in like 4 layers of like polyurethane. I don't get it.
I mean, and Zack Snyder, who is not afraid of showing the male form in his movies.
He loves a good like Tom of Finland reference, that one.
Yeah.
I mean, those gods
the
in
Greek
Justice League.
Yes. This
that's Zeus.
Whew.
That's Zeus, though.
So, and I think with Superman, with Henry Cavill, I think he takes he takes measures to make him shirtless as Clark a lot,
as much as possible. Yeah,
because that whole resurrection scene, he's just in tattered pants, and that's it.
Well, I remember being in the movie theater in 2013 for Man of Steel. When he came from behind that house after he saved the oil rig, jogging in his like Incredible Hulk tattered pants, and no shirt, it was like I was no joke in a theater full of almost all women, and I heard them all go, oh. And even myself, I went, damn, like that's impressive.
That it's like Mr. Universe, like they're carrying the big rock from one point to the other. Like, that's the whole competition. Like, how far can you carry this huge rock?
But it's just so disappointing now to see modern superhero costumes.
Yeah.
Just like, you don't get to see these impressive physiques. And that's why they put in scenes like Chris Evans trying to hold a helicopter back. It's like, we got to show those guns off, guys.
Or Chris Evans just chopping wood.
Yeah, for no reason.
I mean...
chopping Hawkeye's, fireplace wood while he talks to Tony.
Punching that punching bag.
Yeah.
Get that first shot of America's ass.
Literally one scene of Paul Rudd in Ant-Man where he was jacked. Every other scene in a costume. Couldn't tell.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because that's the thing. Especially a guy like Paul Rudd or like talking
Kumail,
to Kumail. Do they need to get that jacked if they're just going to wear these costumes?
Yeah.
Probably not.
I guess at least in the X-Men movies, Wolverine just wears his muscle tee.
Yeah.
His muscle tank.
He doesn't fully embrace the costume until the end, which he thinks is stupid and makes fun of spandex. He says, what would you rather wear, yellow spandex?
Yeah,
I was like,
maybe.
Kind of. I prefer it, but that's just me.
Yeah, totally. The Superman suit in this movie, too, I feel like there was issues with the color because of the blue screen technology.
Yeah, I think that's why it's a different shade of blue.
Yeah.
But I got to say, this
is a little more royal.
It's a little lighter, I think.
It's
very
bright.
Lighter.
It's very bright.
Yeah.
I guess it couldn't be darker.
It couldn't go darker.
Yeah. It's more muted, like a lighter blue.
Yeah.
But I got to say, this costume is fantastic. It's comic book accurate.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And I love the cape.
Yeah, it's great.
I love the cape. Superman's cape is always an issue for me.
Yeah.
As someone who loves Superman, I hated his cape in Man of Steel. I'm glad they went back to a cloth cape versus that leather vinyl thing in
like
Superman Returns.
Leather in Superman Returns. It's so
which
thick.
Has no give. It
So
doesn't
heavy.
look good on
And they
film.
didn't put the S on the Superman cape, right?
No costume on film has had the S on the cape after Lois and Clark.
That's lame.
Okay.
Lois and Clark had it. No one else has it. I love the S on the cape.
Yeah.
But it's for me, one of the big problems is the length. For me, the perfect length is behind the knee.
Sure.
I hated
just going up your calf?
Yeah, I hated Cavill's cape because it touched the ground.
It's so long.
That scene in Man of Steel where he decides to go talk to Zod and he's in the desert, his cape is touching the ground and it's dirty. The
Dirty,
bottom is
yeah,
dirty.
it is.
I'm like,
I noticed
like
that when I watched it the other day. He's walking into the ship, and
it's
from the
dirty.
back, it's dirty.
I was like, that works for Batman. Batman's
Yeah.
cape can drag all day long. That looks cool.
Yeah.
Superman's cape, for me, the perfect length is just behind the knee there, right above the calf.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's always been a big issue for me. It seems like a stupid thing.
No, yeah.
But it's always like
I like the Shazam, the shorty cape.
the little shorty. Yeah. Shorty cape with a hood.
Yeah, Shazam's cape was like to his back. What do you think of Man of Steel costume having no red panties?
To modernize Superman, I don't mind
Yeah.
not having the red
Sure.
undies.
I want the red undies. I want the red briefs.
I'm kind of good either way.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people, like, I have strong opinions about the cape, but I don't have very strong opinions about the undies. As long as
briefs.
there's some sort of
Yeah.
red that draws my eye to that area, like a belt or something, which Man of Steel didn't even have
No.
that. That's why I like the Hackman suit. He doesn't have the undies, but he's got a red belt.
Red belt,
And
yeah.
it kind of draws the eye.
Yeah.
I wonder if they did costume tests with red briefs.
Snyder says they had almost 100 different versions.
I'm
of
sure,
the costume,
yeah.
and they tried. He tried to assure the fans they tried so hard to do the briefs, and it didn't work for what he was doing.
Brandon Routh's briefs are very low waisted.
Yeah, they're almost.
His belt
they're
is
almost like Speedo.
His belt is really low.
Go figure.
Yeah,
with that director.
A gay man directed that movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they're almost like a Speedo.
Yeah.
He also has a very. If you notice, he's got a very high collar. Too.
Oh, okay.
It comes up so high.
Yeah.
Whereas Reeve shows a little bit of clavicle.
Yeah, and
so
Cavill's is like super
well,
low.
Cavill, you get that.
Yeah,
that chest hair bursting out.
Yep. And Brandon Routh's suit, his Superman insignia is, I feel like it's the smallest on screen.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the smallest, and it's where we started to get into like the 3D.
Yes, it's like raised. Yeah, it's textured.
He
or
also
whatever.
had a second suit in that movie that we just don't pay attention to.
Really?
At the very beginning, when he comes back from Krypton, he's wearing an all gray suit with no cape.
Huh.
It's a head to toe gray suit, kind of echoing like what they would do later with like the black suit.
Yeah.
But it's gray.
Yeah.
No cape.
It's interesting. Also, when I did a Google search right now of Brandon Routh, that weird scuba texture is in that suit.
Yeah.
So that's when they introduced it.
In Superman, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember there was reading the behind the scenes stuff on that suit. There was a scene where they had to build different suits for him doing different things.
Yeah,
and he lifted one time
Yeah.
to lift that car in the scene with like Parker Posey.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, I actually really like that suit. It's just too dark for me.
It's dark.
Sure.
But he ripped the suit.
Yeah.
And they said that that's like crashing a Mercedes. And I was like, oh my god.
This image of Brandon Routh, like he is straight up wearing like Aussie bum swim briefs.
The colors of his suit, the color scheme of his suit, is the same color scheme of like Dark Superman in Superman 3.
Yeah.
I feel like the red is too maroon.
It's too maroon.
Yeah.
The blue is fine.
The blue's good. Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in the in Superman 3 it was like a dirty blue, and he was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
dirty
yeah.
blue and purple.
Yeah.
But I think that was also supposed to be their take on Bizarro.
Right. Yeah.
Which works.
Yeah.
For that, but that's also a wild scene.
Yeah.
Superman just splits into two different people.
Yeah,
because
that is
of
weird.
Because of bad
He's
kryptonite.
mad. Yeah.
So it's interesting. We were just talking about on our Starship Troopers episode of actors that are almost too handsome. I think that we were talking about actors like
James Marsden.
Casper Van Dien and James Marsden that are just maybe a little too handsome. Can you really buy them as
an everyman
or like a lawyer or a doctor in a movie? Because they're just too handsome. And I think that's maybe part of the problem with Christopher's career after these movies is that he's just too good looking.
And I kind of wonder if the same thing is going to happen with Henry Cavill.
Sure.
Henry's a very attractive man.
I agree.
I mean, you look at him; he looks like he's chiseled out of marble. You know, and it's like his. Although, or is it the Superman curse?
Yeah,
You know,
that's another thing.
Is he too good looking? Which he's a very good looking man. I mean, there are so many scenes in this movie where we just close up on those blue eyes.
Yeah,
and it's like it's insane. But is it the Superman curse, or is it that he's just too good looking?
Yeah,
because I mean, it's happened to several people who've played Superman who haven't been on that level, like Dean Cain.
Yeah,
I mean, Dean Cain's problematic for other reasons.
Right.
But,
And also just
Brandon Routh.
And also just Dean Cain
Routh,
just kind of has always just read TV actor too.
True.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about that Superman curse, and also some of these. If you go to Christopher Reeve's Wikipedia page, there's an entire section, roles turned down by Christopher Reeve.
Oh, let's hear some.
And some of them were pre-Superman. So, well, maybe not actually. Right around the same time, American Gigolo and The World According to Garp.
So he would have been the Richard Gere character in American Gigolo.
And The World According to Garp went to his best friend, Robin Williams.
Yeah, they were roomies at Juilliard with each other. They were very close.
I mean, I doubt he was up for the John Lithgow role. But let's see. After those, we got Splash, Fatal Attraction.
Splash,
okay.
really?
Yeah.
Fatal Attraction.
I think with Splash, though, it is kind of a thing where they went through everybody.
Sure.
And
like everybody
people,
either read or...
No, they all turned it down.
Oh, sure.
It was this mermaid movie.
Do you think it was less comedic?
It might have been, until Tom Hanks came along.
Is it a Beverly Hills Cop situation?
Yeah, probably. And I think a lot of people were just like, "What the fuck? Like, no, I'm not going to do your mermaid movie.
I'm not doing this kid's mermaid movie." Yeah.
So everybody turned it down, and Tom Hanks was the last holdout. Fatal Attraction went to Michael Douglas. Romancing the Stone.
Sure.
Again, Michael Douglas.
I could see you easily putting
I could see him
Christopher in either of those.
He said he got a lot of action movies, and that he was like, didn't think he wanted to be an action star. So Romancing the Stone, Lethal Weapon.
I was going to ask if Lethal Weapon is on there. And also that's
Donner.
That's Dick Donner.
Yeah. Donner. And Body Heat.
Okay.
Yeah. Who directed Body Heat? That was Lawrence Kasdan. And that went to William Hurt. So, yeah, some interesting movies that he turned down. And then post-accident, he was offered Mason Verger in Hannibal.
Oh.
Okay,
which was ultimately played by Gary Oldman. I don't know that he would have been able to do prosthetics.
Yeah,
that would have been too. Yeah, that would have been too much.
Yeah,
they would never have been able to make the cast. First of all, so the they would have had to have changed the whole like burn victim aspect. Of the character.
Yeah. Well, he's
not a burn victim.
It's not sliced off his face.
Yeah, they would have had to have done something, but he turned that down.
That
might have been why he turned it down. Just saying it's we can't do the makeup. But it would have been interesting because he did still act.
He was in a TV movie of Rear Window with Daryl Hannah.
Yeah.
In the late 90s.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he made his return to the Superman universe with Smallville.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, how fucking tragic, man.
This so sad.
Like, geez Louise. He had like a 4-year-old son with his wife. This is his second wife.
Thrown from a horse when he was horseback riding, right?
2 teenage kids. Yeah. Thrown from a horse, breaks his neck.
It was a spinal cord injury.
Oh,
yeah.
My goodness.
I think it was spinal and lower neck.
Yeah, but like complete
never married either.
Yeah, she stayed with them. And didn't she die like right after he died too?
She died of lung cancer.
Oh my god, that is so tragic.
Ashley's show on Keep It Weird did a little segment of the Superman curse.
Oh, did they?
If you wanted to track down that episode,
yeah.
It's on one of their Holly Weird episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Hollywoodland?
Yes,
with Ben Affleck.
I did.
That was a good movie.
It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. It's kind of fun seeing Ben Affleck play Batman after I've seen him in a Superman costume.
Right? Yeah, that is interesting.
And Ben Affleck like perfectly cast as George Reeves.
Yeah, and I think he was wearing when he was in the suit. I think he was wearing some like something in the suit to bulk him up because George Reeves was very like barrel chested.
Yes,
but he was cast perfectly. I thought.
Yeah.
So sad.
And George Reeves, is it still a mystery?
It's still up in the air if it's still up in the air if it's suicide or murder.
Unsolved.
Interesting. So the Superman curse is that everybody that's played Superman has gone on to tragic ends somehow, or at least their career.
And I think the argument with Brandon Routh is that his career kind of died, but I mean that's kind of being proven wrong now because he is making a little bit of a comeback.
Yeah, I mean several years. He's no longer on Legends of Tomorrow, but several years on a very successful show.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we'll see what happens with.
I could see Henry Cavill having a post superhero career, kind of like Chris Hemsworth. Of that, everything that Chris Hemsworth is in does not do that well at the box office.
Yeah, And I feel like Henry is already pivoting some, but is he playing Superman more? We don't know. He might be done, but we've already seen it with Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So, who's to say? I'm hoping he'll... The Witcher is wildly successful. So
That's true. Yeah. And I know that the Witcher is sort of his pet project, that he's just kind of a big geek at heart.
He's a big old nerd.
Yeah.
He likes to repair computers.
Old, handsome nerd. Talk about God giving with
Sexy
both
nerd.
hands.
Right?
It kind of makes me angry.
I've seen those pictures kind of resurface of him working on the computer
in his tank top.
And it's just too much.
The rumor is that he almost missed getting the call for Superman because he was doing a raid in World of Warcraft.
Oh, Jesus.
I love that, though.
He's just such a big nerd. He was playing video games and almost missed the chance to be Superman.
But, the thing is, it's like he got so big for Superman. And, even in The Witcher, you're just like, oh, my God, he looks
never
crazy.
lost it.
Yeah.
He stayed big.
Yeah.
His body in The Witcher is crazy. Of just how lean he is. How huge, but how lean he is in that movie.
Yeah.
That does not look healthy.
Healthier than me.
But I love all the stories of just Henry Cavill being so ripped that they have to keep redoing his costume.
Yeah,
because he keeps busting out of it.
Yeah, they told him to stop putting on muscle for Man of Steel.
Oh my god!
And then he kept breaking the costume for The Witcher because he's just too big.
Oh man!
And he tried to lean down for The Witcher, and that's why I said that he looks a little unhealthy, because it's just are you
just his veins are right at the top of the skin?
Are you doing okay?
Yeah. I have to stick him in a hot tub. He'll be fine.
Drink some water.
I didn't watch anything of The Witcher besides the first episode. It was good, but it's
not your
thing. It was just really complicated. That I think that you just have to be immersed in that world to really enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Well, it's got a complicated timeline that the producers have said we're not doing for the second season.
Oh, okay, cool. Because I think that's kind of what threw us.
Yeah, it's a whole when does this story take place sort of thing, and it all comes together at the end. I really enjoyed it, but they won't be doing that in season 2.
Okay. All right.
So I guess not. Henry's doing okay with his career right now as far as the Superman curse goes. Dean Cain was never a great actor.
Yeah.
Besides being problematic in other ways, which you wouldn't find out about until Trump got elected. But,
yeah.
But he came back. He was on a couple episodes of Supergirl playing her father.
Oh, okay. That's
he
interesting.
played Papa Danvers. I can't remember his name, but he was her father on a couple episodes. He kind of came. I love how all of these Superman actors eventually kind of make their way.
They go back. So, we should probably wrap up Superman 2. I know this is a fun conversation, but...
you know me. Once I get talking about Superman, I could talk all day.
We kind of covered it all. I love it.
This could be a multi-part epic. So we got
it really can.
You got to cut me off somewhere.
Yeah, but as far as, the original, the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, is this the best one? Is it better than Superman the movie?
Hard to say because then you start talking about which version of this film is the best one.
Yeah.
Is it Lester? Is it Donner?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely find Superman 2, I always found it more enjoyable than the first Superman movie.
Yeah.
The first Superman movie I love. It gave the world Superman.
It's a little slow.
It is slow. It takes us almost an hour to even get to Superman. Mm-hmm. The Krypton stuff, the Smallville stuff, there's a lot there. It's a great film, but it does really work as a two-parter with Superman 2, no matter which version you're watching, Lester or Donner. It works.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they work as companions together. But if you're just going to watch one,
so you
only have a couple hours.
I was under the impression before we recorded this that the theatrical Superman 2 was bad. It's not bad.
No, it's not.
It's still a great movie.
It's silly, but it's a good movie. I really enjoyed it. It's fun.
Yeah, and then when you watch or when you compare all four of them, 3 is even sillier. And 4 is just off the rails.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's So I feel like really it's the first two that are just kind of these great movies.
And that's why I think Superman Returns is a good sequel to Superman 2. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of why they retroactively did that. It works as a good trilogy.
Yeah.
Superman 1, 2, and Returns. Because 3 and 4 are wild.
Oh, yeah.
But 4 was also a passion project of Christopher Reeve. That was his story. He said, I'll continue to do Superman movies if I
that's right. It's like the nuclear weapons thing.
Yeah, if he gets to make a movie about the nuclear arms race.
Yeah. And he has a story credit, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate that it just didn't turn out.
Yeah.
Was sadly. Christopher Reeve the sexual awakening for many
Yes.
young boys. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the costume, that face, like all of it. And just, how sweet he is as Clark, and his acting as Superman. When he is Superman, it's just like, oh my goodness.
The wholesomeness
just
of
dreamy.
just-
Yeah. But then, at the end of Superman 2, it is kind of a petty move, but when he goes back to the truck stop.
Yeah, something Superman would not do.
Yeah.
No. And,
I'm glad that he goes back and kicks the guy's ass.
As a kid, when he went back
Totally.
and got his revenge on that guy, I loved it. But
Yes.
as an adult, not something Superman would do.
But when he looks at the cook and he pays him and he says, been working out, and he lifts his arm.
It's like the nerdiest way to pantomime, been working out. It's
I love it.
and he pays for the damage.
Yeah. Gives him-
Wholesome Clark
gives him
Kent pays
cash.
for, I'm sorry about the damage, sir,
Yep.
and pays for it.
All he really did was mess up a pinball machine, but those can be probably pretty
Exactly.
pricey, I would
He
imagine.
broke some plates, but not a big deal.
Yeah. Not like the first time around. But yeah, I think definitely Chris Reeve's portrayal of Clark and Superman is a lot of young awakening.
It's iconic.
Yeah, for sure. We love it.
It's the gold standard of what a superhero film should be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think they're all kind of, they all owe a debt.
And especially
to
if
these
you're
movies.
maybe a little too overwhelmed or consumed with the stuff like the MCU, the new DC movies, put on any of the original Superman movies that are on HBO Max. Like they're a revisit of these is very refreshing.
Yeah, we don't always need this like huge multi-film connected universe. Just something fun. These are fun films.
Yeah.
To this day and age, they're fun.
Totally. Yeah, we love it. We definitely recommend watching these movies. If you haven't seen them in a long time, check them out.
Or if you sadly haven't seen them at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I was mentioning at the top of the show, these were movies that I did not grow up on, and I think that's the case with a lot of people my age or younger. That these Donner movies just sort of slip through the cracks of our childhood.
Yeah, it's at a certain point. It's like going back and watching classic films. A lot of times people don't think about it. They just watch the modern stuff.
Yeah.
Or they go back and watch the oldies like Spider-Man and X-Men. It's like, no. I didn't.
And those are, what's crazy is that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie and the original X-Men movies are old movies for young people now.
Those movies are 20 years old now.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Those are the classics for the kids.
Oh, God. I can't.
That's crazy. But yeah, I mean these are even older, but they're out there. Yeah, and yeah, all these modern superhero movies definitely owe a debt to Richard Donner and Richard Lester. His name's Richard, isn't it?
Richard, yeah. Another Richard,
Lester.
yeah.
And definitely Christopher Reeve. These movies are amazing. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun talking about Superman 2.
It was a fun episode.
Yeah.
Very fun.
And again, there's so much that we haven't even touched on, but we could
so much.
keep talking. But thanks so much, Billy, for coming on again.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Any chance I get to talk about Superman.
I knew you'd be a good fit for this episode.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do Superman 3 someday.
Oh, God. I mean, I'd come back for the 3, 4.
4, yeah.
I mean, we didn't even scratch the surface of Mark Pillow.
And 4 is Quest for Peace?
Quest for Peace.
Quest for Peace. That's it.
It's got that zany date.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the date.
Which one has the crazy opening to it? Is it 3?
3 has just all this crazy shit going on in Metropolis.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on in Metropolis? With the guy like stuck in the taxi and he's on top of a.
I think it's Gus Gorman's bad luck following him everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
He's walking through Metropolis and he's like
That's
a bad
exactly
luck
what it is.
genie. Everything's just going wrong around him. It's
Super
weird.
Super weird. Oh my goodness. Again, well, maybe we'll return to Superman in the future. And Billy, you're definitely welcome back for any of those episodes.
Oh, thank you.
Oh man. But until then, we'll see you next time, Billy. And thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Fun episode.
Superman 2.
I love Billy.
Yeah, Billy's a great guest. We love you, Billy. I love Superman 2. I love Christopher Reeve. I love Ursa.
She's fierce.
General Zod, great movie. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We have some Patreon shout-outs, and we have a new patron. We would love to say hello to our brand new patron, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Oh, my goodness. Charlie, thank you for being a friend. Thank you for subscribing to our Patreon. And also, thank you to all of our regular patrons, Heather, Muffy, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Jimmy, Genevieve, Dawn, Josh, Emlamelli, Aaron, Melinda and Jim, Jessica, John, Nick, Christine, and Rufino. Thank you for being a friend,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you so much. Head over to our Patreon for lots of additional content. Patreon.com/movies that made us gay. We've got some Watch With Us commentary tracks where you can listen along as the two of us talk over our favorite movies.
And I've been doing a thing where I will put the full uncut episode if we run a little longer on our Patreon.
Yes,
too.
indeed. Yes, indeed. For example, the Starship Troopers episode, we went very long on that.
And the Superman episode, I have a feeling is going to
yes, indeed.
going to go up on Patreon in its entirety.
Yes, indeed. And also, we are coming very close to our 100th movie.
We're getting there.
Our 100th episode. I can't believe we're getting there, but we are. And to celebrate our 100th episode celebration extravaganza, we will be doing a free Watch With Us commentary track. So if you are not currently a patron or you don't subscribe to our Patreon, you can head over to the Patreon page and there will be a Watch With Us commentary track for 10 Things I Hate About You. That will be part of the 100th episode celebration week, and that will be free. You won't have to be a patron, a subscribing patron, but you will still be able to listen. You just have to do it through the Patreon website or the app. Very easy. And it'll give you a little taste for what our commentary tracks are. And if you like what you hear, then go ahead and hit subscribe, and you'll be able to listen to a lot more fun stuff. We would also love it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
We'd like 5 stars.
Yes, indeed. Please hit 5 stars, and also write
Smash
us a
it to
good
the right.
review. Yeah. Write us a review if you like us, and if you write us a good review, we'll read it on an upcoming episode. How about that? Promise. So go over to Apple Podcasts and do that. We would love it if you would follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Movies That Made Us Gay.
And Twitter at MTMUGPod.
Yes, indeed. My name is Pete.
And I'm Scott.
I am on Instagram and Twitter at Peter Lasagna and Letterboxd at Peterific.
I always love when I try to say and Scott because I think that we're doing our intro. This is the outro. Anyways, I'm Oscar Scott on Twitter, Scott Youngbauer on Instagram, and just Scott Youngbauer on Letterboxd. See what I'm watching.
Yes, indeed. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.